Hello there, Internet! Troy to the Max Extreme here.
And Ghost Hunter Dave.
And together we existentially traverse the universe as IMPERIUS REX.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
I love your tie-ins lately. They've been on point.
Think about them on the drive here.
Okay, you got 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Why pay attention to the icy conditions?
Right.
Well, today we are taking a look. We're revisiting a publisher that we made a pretty big splash with in one of our very early IMPERIUS REX episodes when we covered a smattering of Valiant comics.
Yes.
So we're diving back into the deep end of the pool by taking a look at a couple mini-series from Valiant, the Divinity series. And also, at the very end, taking a look at the newest iteration of this book, the Eternity.
Divinity, created by Matt Kindt
And
Trevor Hairsine, inked by Ryan Wynn, colored by David Barron, are the sole creators of this entire 4-part series.
That's right.
Not a break in there.
No.
All that sucks. And it starts out as thus. No, that sucks too.
You want me to take a go at it? Divinity focuses on the story of Abram Adams, an orphan adopted by the Soviet Union and trained to become a cosmonaut. Just love saying cosmonaut. During the Cold War space race. He and 2 others are enlisted on a 30-year mission into deep space when they stumble into the unknown.
I saw you going for quotes, so I had to meet you there real quick.
Thought you were trying to beat me to it. Like, nice try, asshole. So, apparently he's the lone survivor of that failed mission, and he returns to Earth 55 years later, but now he's blessed with the powers of a god.
That's right.
So he gets back to Earth, communism replaced by capitalism, Soviet Union dismantled, everyone he's ever known and loved, gone. And he's crash-landed in the Australian outback with the powers of a god.
That's
as
right.
we said. So what's he do? He remakes it into this lush little sanctuary.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, all these people start coming up, pilgrimaging to him.
You made it through it.
Yep.
It was quite a pilgrimage to that word.
It was. A lot of syllables. And he basically grants them like sanctuary and transforms them into whatever their heart desires.
Yeah.
Even if it's unbeknownst to them.
Yeah.
We got bird people, we got butterfly people.
That's right.
But they seem okay with it.
That seems to be.
Doesn't sound very good to me, but whatever. No one's complaining.
No.
Birds can't talk.
Okay, what Valiant Comics does the best, I think, is diversity. Because you would think that astronaut going into space coming down as a godlike figure.
Cosmonaut.
Well, hold on, I didn't finish my thought.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That would be like an American type of idea that would be sold to the American crowd, but it's not. It's a Russian cosmonaut getting launched into the outer reaches of space, and you totally get a different perspective of what the other side of the world in the 60s at that point is looking to what the world should be.
Yeah.
And when he comes back into 2015... and the world is just in shambles to his eyes. Well, not really.
No,
he seems to be okay with it because I'll just do whatever I want.
Yeah, make bird people.
I think that's super interesting.
To put a spin on a quote from Watchmen, which we read earlier this year, God exists, and he's Russian.
Got him!
Got him.
If there was one thing I could say about each one of these, because I don't want to keep bringing it up after every single part, is that each one's only 4 issues.
Very brief.
And I almost wish it was longer, and I never say that.
Yeah.
I almost wish there was one issue in there as like not a breather issue, but let things... You could just soak in some of these moments a little bit more.
Yeah, because all of these are very big, like, world-changing events, and they go by so fast. Valiant excels at keeping things moving. Like, everything they write seems to be like in 4-issue arcs.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't any just like treading water moments.
Right.
And to get the full scope of this, I feel like maybe you need a little bit of treading water in there just to see how the rest of the world kind of deals with all this.
Yes.
All these shakeups.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's it veers away from the decompressed storytelling that started like in the early 2000s and kind of just jumps back into like how it was in the like 70s and early 80s and stuff.
I think it's interesting too that as he comes back, he's a very benevolent deity.
Yeah.
He has no ill will.
No.
He isn't even too shaken up that communism is no longer a thing.
Right.
He's like, well, you know, times are changing.
What does everybody want?
Yeah.
Butterflies? You got
You
it.
got it. Poof. Get some bird people over here.
Sunbathing bird people.
I'm sure there's more. That's all I can think of, though. Butterflies and bird people.
I think
more do you
another
need?
guy like meets his family and like sentimental stuff. And
What's he turn into? How many pairs of wings
a
does he
loving
have?
father for once.
Boring. There's a rock climber who pops up a couple times in this. I think his name is David something.
Yeah.
And he falls off a rock. Not very good at rock climbing, apparently. Bashes his head pretty good.
Yeah.
And I think Divinity just kind of helps him out, and he becomes almost like the first like real parishioner, I guess.
Yeah.
Who's championing for him. And he kind of has a little change of heart towards the end of the book, as we'll get to. The end of the series, actually.
Right.
So once Divinity is kind of found out by the rest of the world, the World Peacekeeping Organization of the Valiant universe, called Unity, decides this guy's too powerful. So they send their super team over there to just kind of feel him out and possibly seek and destroy.
Yeah. So they send Exo Man of War, Ninjak, Livewire, and the Eternal Warrior.
Yep. Bloodshot was busy.
I guess so.
All right.
I guess he's up to snuff.
No. He's in Colorado somewhere, I think,
Training
mulling
some
around
dog.
with Lemire.
Yeah.
But they encounter him, and he immediately incapacitates them.
Yeah.
He like traps them in a weird time manipulated segment of reality where every second that exists in real time, they're in there for like months.
Yeah.
And Ninjak is the one who's able to kind of knock him out of it by some real hardcore meditation. And they're able to kind of just talk him out of it, keep him more complacent, and then he kind of agrees to just go into like self-exile in his weird spherical pod that he returned to Earth
like
in.
miles below the Earth.
Way down below the Earth's surface.
Yeah.
And I think he does so with like the kind of reanimated memory of his daughter.
Yeah.
Who he's just kind of conversing with now under the Earth.
It's like, well, it's brought up even right before this because I don't know if he's tricked into this, but he meets his like secret wife and then daughter at the time. He never met her.
Right. Because when he originally signed up for the mission back in the Cold War era, he had to be like a lone wolf. He couldn't have any ties because they're going to send him out on this
death mission.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
But he did have a wife who was pregnant, and while he was in space, she had their love child. She died, and his kid died at some point too.
Yeah.
And when he kind of meets them again, they basically say like, "We had a life, and you know it's nice to see you, but we're happy being dead, I guess."
Yeah, pretty much.
So like, leave us alone.
Yeah, and so
he accepts it. He's pretty easygoing through this whole thing,
which is really refreshing actually, because you would think that he would almost be like either like a Dr. Manhattan type where he's kind of just numb to the world around him. Or he'd just be, I can change anything I want. And maybe we'll see that a little bit later.
Yeah.
But I really like it's a really weird spin. But I would say like maybe a little downfall is that it makes it like wrap up really fast. And then that'll jump into Divinity 2. So in the first Divinity, you find out that Abram Adams wasn't the only one to be jettisoned into space.
That's right.
There were two others.
Two other cosmonauts.
That's right.
I'm going to throw that in any chance I get.
Divinity 2 deals with a second one.
That's right.
Mishka.
Mishka.
And I would have to say this is probably, out of the 3 Divinity stories, I think this one's my favorite one.
Yeah, I would say this is the most conflict of any of them.
But you find out Mishka's backstory, that she's kind of like...
street rat.
Yeah, and she's a little more rough around the edges. She's more has a hard edge.
Yeah, she has something to prove through the whole Soviet training.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So she comes up really hard and cold. And then it jumps back to their 30-year mission where Abram has already left, and they're left there, like, pretty much to die, unless they want to take off their helmets in the unknown, too, and test that shit out for themselves.
Yeah. Because it didn't look pleasant.
No,
whatever happened.
just barfed up an opulescent goo.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I'm a god now. Toodaloo.
See you later. You'd think I'd help you. You'd think I would.
He didn't. It's the most dickish thing I think he's ever done.
Oh, totally. What is the reasoning behind that? He doesn't regret it at all, either.
No, he's just like, he brings it up maybe later, it's like, I probably should have helped, but... Hindsight's...
I had bird people to make.
Hindsight's 2020, right?
Yeah. So her and, what is the other guy's
Casimir.
name? Casimir.
Yeah.
And she decides, like, I have to check out this unknown.
Yeah.
And she examines it, gets the same weird gooey goodness that Abrams did.
Yep.
And then she decides, I need to go back too.
Yep.
And she reassembles the ship.
The remaining two ships kind of together, what pieces work.
Yep.
And then it's like, well...
Needs it to power it. So she's like, all right, Casimir, we're going to go back. And you're going to be like a battery for this.
He's kind of reluctant to do so.
Yeah.
But she just kind of forces him
She talks him into it.
She talks him into being a hood ornament for this space shuttle.
And off they go.
Yeah. And
Casimir, will you light my sleigh tonight? No!
So, as he's burning up on re-entry, Mishka joins now I think it's like 2016, and she has now joined the very, unbeknownst to her, capitalist world that it now is, and she is not having it.
Capitalist pigs.
Yeah. She wants to change it into a communist world, just how she left it. No stone unturned. He wants to flip it and reverse it, just like Missy Elliott said many years after she was born.
That's right. So she has a secret meeting with Putin, right?
Yeah.
And that's another thing. Like, all these real-life political figures are in this. Like, she goes and meets up with him, and then, like, in the span of a day, everything has changed. Like, Russia has become this economic and political... like powerhouse. Yeah. And nobody really knows why. It just all of a sudden happened.
Yeah.
And Abrams realizes, like, no, this isn't what needs to be going on.
Right.
And the two of them butt heads, and it goes into a pretty long spanning fight between the two of them up until the end of the book.
Yeah. What I really like that Kindt does in this story is plays with the aspect of time travel.
Yeah.
And he refers to it as like pages of a book. If you don't mind,
You have a book.
I have a book in my hand. Abrams says to Mishka, time is not so absolute. It does have limits. Think of it like a book, with many pages every moment existing simultaneously, but only one page may be read at a time. You can go back. The urge to edit and change is natural, but the words are already printed. The best you can do is underline a phrase, perhaps smudge the ink slightly to obscure the meaning. Our influence on the past is minimal, 21 grams to be exact. What some claim the weight of the human soul. That is the real influence we exert over a time and place. We belong in the present, here. We are just ghosts out of time, limited to slamming doors and blowing out candles. We are the breath on a pane of glass.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's very good.
As he's giving that rousing speech after she just tries to kill him as an infant.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But time is not allowing her to do so. And then, right after that rousing speech that he gives her, she just tries to go to Gorbachev and try to change his mind in the past. And he's like, it's not gonna fucking work.
Yeah. Do I need to give the speech about the ghosts and the glass again?
To him saying, to change the past is like trying to use a feather to stop a train. Which I thought was like, that whole chunk right there is like in 3 pages. And I thought it was really well done by Kindt. And I like that aspect of like time travel, where it's, once it's done, it's kind of set in stone. If you try to tear out a page, the rest of the book doesn't really make any sense.
Right. Yeah. time only allows so much flexibility.
Right.
And if you go for the fences, it's gonna like bear down at you and fix it.
Right.
Yeah, I like that. There's a Stephen King book, 11/22/63, that has that same premise, the JFK assassination one.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, this was good, and I really like how it all wraps up, how he's able to change her mind at the end, because it goes right along with what he's saying.
Right.
He essentially smudges the ink on a page.
Well, he uses, like, a slight feather-like influence in the past, so it, like, butterflies effect into the future.
Yeah, she has a moment as a little girl where she's always lived on the streets, the world's been shit to her, and Abrams goes back into the past, and he himself gives her a present.
Yes.
And that token of generosity stays with her and changes her entire belief system going forward into the present.
He inceptions the shit out of her.
Yeah, and it's all happening simultaneously. So it's really like, oh, it all checks out. It's good.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's why I think this is my favorite. And that book motif he kind of brings up, I want to bring up again in Eternity a little bit. It's a little bit vaguer, but they
have a good visual representation in that one. Of
yes,
that
they very much do.
Yeah. So Divinity 2, really good. Takes the established characters and then builds, I think, a much more interesting story as it goes forward.
Yes.
So then it gets really weird. By the time we get to Divinity 3, the Stalin-verse, which, as you would guess...
Stalin's the shit out of this thing.
Yes. So much it needs a 4-issue tie-in series.
Yes, yeah.
Which goes into detail on the other characters that also exist in the Valiant continuity at this time.
Dig it out.
What is this one called?
Heroes of the Glorious Stalin-verse.
Oh, glorious.
All these tie-ins are like Russian Red Sun takes on your favorite Valiant heroes, such as like Bloodshot and Shadow Man,
Archer,
Exo Man of War.
Yeah. So this kicks off into high gear on the first page, so much that you're like, did I need to read something prior to this?
Yeah.
Because it opens with the world in full-on control by the Soviet Union.
Yes.
All the characters that we know and love are now under the command of Mother Russia.
And Vladimir Putin.
Oh, Putin. So only a couple characters have any recollection of the world as it was, and that's Nenjak and...
Toyo Harata is also another one. He's from Harbinger.
Okay. Is there anyone
Imperium.
else?
They are kind of aware that something else is going a bit awry, probably through ninja training.
Oh, of course. He had some really extreme meditation that morning, and he's like, I don't usually have vodka on my pancakes.
But with the whole world changed over, even Abrams, sorry.
He's in a mental institution.
Yeah, he's like, had his mind wiped to think that he's like a crazy person, or at least he's being dosed with something. And
it's a very House of M type of
very
scenario.
Very much so, yeah.
From Marvel.
Yep.
Yeah. Eventually we find out it is Mishka, her doing. She's up to her old tricks. Controlled by Putin, but manipulated through a third character.
Yes.
Someone we thought was long dead.
Yes.
Casimir.
Yes. You got it.
Got it. I had to play the song in my head.
While he has no physical body, really, I guess his now godlike powers enabled his consciousness to like just burrow deep inside of Mishka and just spring out at a moment's notice.
Oh, yeah.
Which he does.
Oh, boy. But he's the one who is kind of at the forefront of this entire communist takeover.
Yeah.
And he's pissed about being left to die and turned into a hood ornament.
Right.
This guy's been screwed over so many times. You really can't blame him at this point.
Yeah.
And it eventually comes down to a pretty big battle royale with the heroes that have been reawakened.
Yep.
And the ones still under the control. And Abrams and Mishka kind of team up to defeat Casimir.
Yes.
And by defeat, it's more like Abrams just reasons with him.
Yeah.
And says, I understand why you're pissed. Bro, I get it. My bad.
You're flexing pretty hard, bro.
Yeah. But, like, you have the powers of a god. why waste it on reshaping this universe when you could literally go and create universes at this point?
Right. Why are you thinking so small?
Yeah. And that seems like a dangerous idea to tell
That's what I thought.
Bloodthirsty entity. But he gets to him, and he's like, yeah, you're right. I am gonna go wreak havoc upon the cosmos.
Yeah. He's out of there.
Yeah, and he just goes.
Yeah.
I thought Eternity was going to be having to pick up the pieces of that. I figured that's whatever this weird dude on the cover was.
Yeah.
He somehow, like, creates a physical form and then just tears it up. But no, you don't see him again.
Nope.
Maybe he'll pop up again, but that was it.
Right.
So they kind of leave on good terms, strangely enough. And then the world reverts back to our normal, you know, 2019 or whatever.
Once Casimir's out of there, everything just flips it and reverses it again.
That's right.
This is another instance where I kind of wanted, like, another issue for this to, like, breathe again.
I do appreciate the fact that they don't dedicate multiple issues to just, like, slugfests.
Yeah,
because we get enough of that in all of the big 2 books for big events.
Yeah.
This can just be the story. But yeah, sometimes the story's so good you kind of want more.
Just to want to sit in it a little longer.
Yeah. Even the tie-ins, like, they really don't do much more to flesh it out. They just give you, like, a little side story of each of these 4 characters that are pretty unconsequential to the big scope of it.
Right.
But I mean, it's fun. I like Bearded Bloodshot.
Oh, yeah, me too.
It looks like Rasputin.
Yeah.
And I don't read a whole lot of the other Valiant titles, so the Shadow Man stuff left me really kind of puzzled. And that was a big chunk of the tie-ins, even though he doesn't play a big role in the main storyline.
Yeah.
But it definitely made me like, is there anything else that was published around this time that gives more details on this? And I don't know if there is.
I don't think so. Because Valiant really only puts maybe 6 or 8 titles out maybe a month. And if a lot of the time was dedicated to this kind of like event, I think this is pretty much everything here. Yeah,
it's interesting. I like it because it's the opposite of what we expect with the other ones.
Yes.
But at the same time, I still like, oh, but that's it? Like, I could use a little more, actually.
Right. I know. That's what I was thinking about this one, too.
Okay. Yeah. So that wraps it up for the Divinity series, and then it goes on to a new iteration of it, I guess, called Eternity, which is a direct continuation. Mishka and Abrams are now married with child and living out in the woods, just kind of doing their own thing. Until the kid goes missing.
Yes.
They have to suit up once more, put on their standard cosmonaut gear with all the tubes.
Finned helmets.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
Savage Dragon cosplay with apocalypse arm tubes.
Yeah.
They would be catching on everything.
You gotta imagine.
I walk in a door and my belt loop hooks around the door handle like half the time. Can you imagine flipping those big jump ropes around?
I think it does a good job of, like, actually kind of renaming and kind of restarting maybe another arc.
Yeah, because it is so different.
Other than, like, having your cosmonaut characters back, like, it's completely different.
Yeah. So Divinity is a very realistic scenario of what would happen in this situation.
Right.
This one puts these god characters into a world full of god characters.
Yes, yeah.
It is probably, like, the best iteration of a current day, like, Kirby, heavy metal type of space opera, cosmic, weird, Doctor Strange, Steve Ditko, everything.
It's all thrown in there.
Yeah.
It seemed like a pretty heavy undertaking for Kindt.
Yeah. He creates an entire universe here.
Yeah.
We finally get to know what the unknown is.
It is like weird creatures. They all look different. It's all planes of existence, all inhabiting this one square of reality.
Very, like, New Gods influence.
Very much so.
With, like, a Watcher character out of Marvel called the Observer.
Yes.
And this whole thing kicks off because the Observer is killed. He's shot. And his job was essentially just to observe the cosmos. Is that it? Yeah,
and to, like, keep a balance between the past and the future while living in the current.
Okay.
That's what I had to extrapolate.
Okay, yep. So the 2 cosmonauts go off into the unknown to find their baby. They meet a wild cast of characters. They have a couple space battles.
Yes.
And eventually they find their kid and realize that he is being prepped to take over the role of the Observer.
Yeah, to become the new Observer.
And they find out the reason they stole him is because the Unknown imprinted on Mishka when she first experienced those weird tube grass creatures to kind of carry the genetic makeup of the Observer, of the next Observer. So when her and Abrams had the kid, he was destined to become this next Observer.
Right. But it's also brought up, too, that it's not Abrams' child. She was with this child before her and Abram got together.
Okay.
So it is like the Observer's influence impregnated inside of her, gestating, all while Casimir's riding piggyback.
God, I'm really hungry.
Because they make reference, I went back and looked, they have actual panels pulled out of Divinity 2, where she's going through that purple, like, goo grass, and they pull it right out of there and they retcon it in.
And then I thought what really made this interesting was, at some point, some of these characters from the Unknown go to Earth and meet up with Divinity's followers, which are feeling betrayed because he leaves them to go get to find his kid.
Right.
The main acolyte of Divinity is pissed that he wasn't brought along on this space adventure, and he fires his gun into, like, the portal that these creatures were from. It travels through space and time and hits the Observer at the beginning of the story.
Right.
So, in this weird time-manipulated scenario... Yeah. It's a paradox. It totally is.
What this David Borrow guy can do is, like, find patterns. That's, like, his main deal. So, like, when he was blessed by Divinity, he was somehow able to see possibly into the unknown, or at least be able to know the way. And so with the bird sniper, fires a bullet, but with the Observer able to see the past and the future, he knows that he is going to die. It's like written that he can't change it. So he goes and puts his influence into that grass and just takes a bullet for the team. And then just, like, waits for everything to recycle again. So it's a pretty cool, heavy, kind of Morrison meta idea.
Very.
They are talking about, like, it's that page where it goes out of color and then into a sketch and then into, like, a blue line. And then just, like, a script. And it's where, like, your ideas are what creates anything. Like, what are you but an idea or something to that effect. I thought that was really cool. And that's, like, more of, like, the book effect, too, where it's, like, all of this is just a story. Like, it's pretty much Kindt saying, like, I can do whatever I want. I'm writing it and makes it into reality. Which made me begs a question. So, like, it's stated in these Divinity books that Abram enjoys sci-fi because he loved him as a kid, as well as Casimir. So, like, when he tells Casimir in Divinity 3 to go bug off, I was like, did Casimir create this reality because he's into sci-fi?
Could be.
And so that's how he is able to kind of get with Mishka, because he had a thing for her in Divinity 2. And so, like, somehow through a weird retrospective that he actually got to impregnate and have a kid with her.
Oh, boy.
And so, like, I was just kind of like...
Sounds a bit like Cosmic Rain.
I was kind of, like, trying to extrapolate.
Did Alan Moore write this?
Or possibly was it Abram, when he was finally created into godhood, did he use his, like, love for sci-fi to make this weird...
universe that he's living out?
That he's kind of like,
writing
I kind
of
remember these characters from all these kind of books, and he kind of just is making it up as it goes along, and the story is just him, thinking as he goes.
You drifted off a little there.
I kind of am there right now.
It's good, and the fact that, like, this seems like it's the first part of another ongoing couple miniseries, so I'm sure maybe we'll find out. We're going way cosmic at this point, so I imagine it's only going to get deeper and weirder. But I'm on board. I like this. When the next one comes out, I think I'm going to jump right into it. But overall, really, really good, quick series. Like, you can read this in a day,
All 4 parts was, 16 issues? That's like any Marvel event with a couple tie-ins.
Exactly. Really good. And stay tuned because we are hoping to chat with a couple of the creators of this book. Friend of the show, Ryan Wynn, and he might bring on a couple more partners onto the conversation.
Yes.
So stay tuned.
Yes. So let us know down below what you think of all that Valiant goodness that we have here. And until next time, I've been Short of the Max Extreme.
And I've been Ghost Hunter Dave.
And we will see you next time.
Imperius Rex, 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 Imperius Rex.